Hi. I'd like to start by defining meditation as a practice of focusing one's mind for a period of time in silence or with the aid of chanting for spiritual purposes or as a method of relaxation. My case would also support the teaching of meditation twice a week in schools as a way to keep up with their schedules. The Dalai Lama said that if every 8-year-old in the world is taught meditation, we will eliminate violence from the world within one generation. Meditation as an ancient practice to increase mental awareness and align the mind and body has been around for 5,000 years, with its first documentation in 1500 BCE. It has mental, emotional, social, and spiritual benefits that have been scientifically proven and individually experimented. Children studying in schools mainly deal with issues of academic pressure, peer pressure, emotional disconnect, and sometimes ADHD, bullying, violence, and racial abuse. The Anxiety and Depression Association in America recorded 25% of adolescents undergoing depression in the US alone. Meditation is an all-encompassing solution to this problem since it offers higher mental agility, emotional balance, and concentration, all without pills. Mentally, it improves cognition, retention, and concentration. A Harvard study found that meditation and mindfulness training made faster and significantly more pronounced attention-based adjustments to the alpha rhythm in the brain, which helps to suppress irrelevant or distracting sensations and regulate the flow of sensory information between brain regions. Thereby, increases concentration and more focus on studies. According to Forbes, a study in 2013 showed that an 8-week training in mindfulness and meditation significantly reduced hyperactive behaviors and improved concentration in young boys with ADHD. A study in neuroimage showed that meditation is directly linked to an increase in larger frontal volumes of gray matter, and the US National Library of Medicine showed that it is associated with increased cortical thickness, which is associated with attention and sensory processing. I propose that considering the myriad benefits of meditation, it should be taught in schools because schools are a common place where children can be taught things in a controlled environment. Since parents generally hardly take out the time to introduce children to these practices, either because they have never really tried it or assume that it's going to be boring for the child or it's nonsense for the child without actually experiencing it. So that's like knowing that vegetables are good for children, but not making them eat them because they don't like the taste. As educational institutions, schools should incorporate more wholesome curriculums involving meditation that deal with mental health, especially considering the rise in depression and suicide cases related to academic pressure, peer pressure, bullying in schools, and stuff like that. So in the next segment, I'll talk about the emotional benefits with some examples.
Okay, thank you for that speech. I'm going to be outlining two major problems with instituting meditation in schools, two major disadvantages. The first disadvantage is the Establishment Clause violation. Now, the Establishment Clause is a provision to the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, which states that Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of a religion. I'm going to have 3 points under this disadvantage. The first point is that meditation is intrinsically religious. In fact, you pretty much acknowledged this under your point when you define meditation as spiritual and then quoted the Dalai Lama. I can provide more substantiation for this point if you would like. The second point is that U.S. Supreme Court and appellate court precedent bans religion in schools, according to the Establishment Clause. And again, if this becomes an issue, I can trace the U.S. and appellate court precedent in order to draw this conclusion. The third point would be the implications. And the implications would be that meditation, therefore, violates the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. There are myriad reasons why the Establishment Clause is in place. I'm just going to list 2 of them here. First is taxpayer dollars. If you're an atheist, your taxpayer dollars shouldn't go to fund a statue of the 10 Commandments in a government building. Similarly, meditation and derivation from Eastern religion, your taxpayer dollars shouldn't be going to fund meditation programs in public schools. The second thing is parental choice. If you're a Christian, a Muslim, an atheist parent, and you feel uncomfortable with your child learning a practice derived from another worldview, you shouldn't be legally obligated to send your kids to a school if that bothers you. So that's the first disadvantage, is that it be unconstitutional according to the founding documents of the United States. The second disadvantage would be the negative side effects. And I have 6 or 7 studies here talking about the psychological trauma that meditation can induce for certain individuals. Now, I'm going to step back and I'm going to acknowledge that, yes, on the whole, meditation can be very beneficial for probably a majority of people. However, there is a significant, substantial, and non-negligible minority that experiences significant problems from engaging in meditative practices. And we cannot be instituting programs in our school that risk exposing our children to psychological trauma. In later speeches, I'm going to be detailing these studies in more specifics if that becomes an issue.
All right. So first, I'd like to point out the emotional benefits of meditation, and then I'll refute your claims. A study by the American Psychosomatic Society found that meditation increases the left side anterior activation, which is associated with increase in positive feeling and can combat depression in kids. A University of Oxford study said that where the practice of mindful-based cognitive therapy, largely involving meditation, made students who were prone to depression recognize their emotional turmoil, engage with it in a different way, and respond to it with compassion. Meditation increases productivity, the ability to multitask, improves memory, and a research by a professor at UCSB shows that it improves the ability to be creative and think outside the box. These are qualities that children in schools need to hone and practice, and it's a major focus of many educational institutions. By extending school by say half an hour, twice a week, they experience better academic performance, a 75% decrease in suspensions, with students saying that they're more conscious of their actions, calmer and less angry. Hence, considering all the benefits, school authorities should take the pros of meditation into consideration, enough to make it a regular practice in the development of a child. Schools, I think, can no longer turn a blind eye to common problems that students face, such as academic pressure, and therefore need to employ more organic solutions such as meditation. Now you talk about freedom of choice and religion. Firstly, with regards to the notion of freedom of choice and religion, meditation does not have to be religious. It does not have to involve chanting. It is totally dependent on the person doing it. It is not Hindu. It is not Buddhist. You can sit in silence for half an hour and that's meditation. So the religious aspect doesn't come unless the school or the individual wants it to come. Secondly, most religions, ancient religions across the world, have been practicing meditation, such as Hinduism, Buddhism, even some forms of Christianism. As far as freedom of choice, as adults, it is our responsibility to inculcate habits in children that will benefit them overall. Like I said, it's like knowing vegetables are good for the body, but not making our children eat them because they don't like the taste. This will not only deprive them of good nutrients, but they will also have no way to deal with the temptations of junk food. So by incorporating this practice twice a week for small segments, it doesn't overburden children or make them feel like they're being pressured to do something they otherwise wouldn't do. As far as the establishment clause go, because meditation by its inherent nature, there is a difference between being spiritual and being religious, and because by meditation being inherently or intrinsically not being religious, it can be practiced in school as a spiritual and as quiet time. A lot of schools in California, especially in the US, have been legally practicing meditation in their schools as quiet time, where kids sit and they just quietly sit for half an hour and they practice, which has shown drastic improvement in academic progress. Okay, I'll pass the mic to you now.
Okay, I'm going to be reiterating the first disadvantage and then moving into the second disadvantage. Just to clarify, in terms of Christianity, while Christianity does include a meditative component, that meditation is focusing on filling the mind rather than emptying the mind, which is pervasive in Eastern religions. In terms of meditation being intrinsically religious, John Kabat-Zinn, who's the founder of mindfulness meditation, says it's the heart of Buddhist meditation. Mindfulness is the seventh step. Buddhism, Buddhists use mindful meditation to achieve liberation from suffering and to become enlightened. In fact, many of the programs that are currently implemented in schools that, like you mentioned, are, in terms of their founders, quote-unquote stealth Buddhism. For example, Judy Goodman, the founder of Insight LA, called it stealth Buddhism, says that the secular classes use a different vocabulary, getting children to engage in the mindfulness of Buddhism, transforming students whether they know it or not. Same thing with a Portland, Oregon program. People have been trained, the founder was trained in a Zen Buddhist monastery for 8 years. Mind Up, which is an international program, is explicitly Buddhist. The fact of the matter is, meditation and Buddhism and Eastern ideology are inextricably linked, and that's been condemned by United States court precedent. According to the Supreme Court decision Tarasco versus Watkins in 1961, it affirmed that non-theistic ideologies like Buddhism are considered intrinsically religious. And then the Third Circuit Court in 1979, Malmak v. Yogi, held that a particular transcendental meditation program violated the establishment clause. The precedent is all there. Meditation and ideology particularly defined as religion according to Supreme Court precedent, are inseparable. And furthermore, US Supreme Court precedent condemns religion on the basis of the Establishment Clause. So the first disadvantage still stands, that meditation is illegal. or meditation in public schools, I'm sorry, is illegal. The second disadvantage, in response to the studies you prevented, I have a meta study from the Campbell Corporation. It surveyed 61 studies on meditation and found that there may be somewhat marginal positive benefits, but the results are ultimately inconclusive. A 2011 study at Duke University raised concerns about the lack of quality research on meditation. And furthermore, I have 5 more studies, very credible studies, ranging from professors at the University of California to Seattle Pacific University, the University of Washington, to the University of London, that say that for a minority of people, meditation causes things like depersonalization, which is feeling detached from one's mental processes or body, psychosis, delusions, hallucination, disorganized speech. Again, I'm not contesting the fact that meditation can be beneficial for large swaths of people. The fact of the matter is, there is a significant risk. It hasn't been sufficiently researched enough. And to expose our students to undue psychological trauma is simply a non-negotiable fact. We can't do it. That's why we need to reject teaching meditation in schools.
So I think you're stuck on the fact that meditation is Buddhism. There are different types of meditation, and not all of them are Buddhist or religious. What is so religious about sitting and breathing, like quiet time? So now I propose a plan where children meditate for half an hour twice a week, a change that can be easily made considering the large benefits that children will receive. Schools do not need to cut down on English or math classes, but can incorporate meditation in school assembly time or extracurricular time, or extend school by half an hour twice a week. I'd like to give examples to underscore this further, and to also display that meditation has been taught in schools in the US very legally, and the benefits of that. So NBC News highlighted a story of a school in San Francisco set in the poorest neighborhood where kids would see guns and every day, and fights would occur 2-3 times a week. The school increased time by half an hour over a 4-year period, saw suspensions decrease by 79%, with a notable increase in academic performance and the highest rates of attendance they have ever experienced. The Atlantic reported a case of a New Haven academy which required yoga and meditation classes 3 times a week for its incoming freshmen. After each class, students themselves had reduced levels of cortisol, which is a stress hormone. In San Francisco, legally, meditation programs had twice as many students score proficient in English on the California Achievement Test than in similar schools where the program did not exist. In the Vistacion Valley Middle School, specifically reduced suspensions by 45% in the first year that they introduced meditation to their children. Attendance rates climbed to 98%, grade point averages improved, and the school recorded the highest happiness levels in San Francisco in the annual California Healthy Kids Survey. The list can go on about the success stories regarding meditation and these real-life examples to show how schools can incorporate this practice without major opportunity costs. As far as kids not being able to handle these experiences, these transcendental experiences, which is more than one can actually handle, occurs on very high stages of meditation, unlikely to be achieved in small segments of meditation twice a week. Moreover, these experiences have long-term positive effects in life and work towards a more spiritually aware mindset, which is not religious. There is a difference, which isn't exactly a negative thing. I'd also like to point out that as our society is depending more on prescription drugs, even to combat mental illness, we are in the need of a more natural and organic and long-lasting effect to secure the mental health of society. Many pharmaceutical companies promote the use of medication as instant and relieving. By inculcating the healthy habit of meditation in children, not only can we reduce the intake of these chemicals in their body, but we can also begin a culture of healthy and positive mental health from a very young age, which can also combat a lot of mental depression cases that adults face in the world. Now I'll pass the mic back to you.
Okay, let's clarify briefly the definition of meditation. You said sitting and reading is not spiritual, but I would contend that sitting and reading is not intrinsically meditative. It's filling your mind with content rather than emptying your mind with content, and emptying your mind of content, and emptying your mind would be the hallmark of meditation. To the first disadvantage, you said that meditation is taught legally in many states at the moment. Well, the fact of the matter is I've demonstrated that many legal meditation programs are covert forms of sneaking religion into schools. And in fact, the case that's going to determine their legality is currently pending for the Supreme Court right now. So the legality has not been determined yet, and I'm indicating why the Supreme Court will likely overturn meditation in schools based on the fact that it's going to violate the Establishment Clause. I'd like to recapitulate these 2 points. The first point is that meditation is intrinsically linked to religion. I've quoted multiple people reference the origins of meditation, harken back to your definition of meditation as spiritual to demonstrate this point. I think it's gone fairly uncontested. The second point refers to the US court precedent. And as I've demonstrated in the 2 court cases I cited, it's extremely likely that the US Supreme Court is going to overturn meditation as illegal in public schools. The first disadvantage is that it's simply unconstitutional. The second disadvantage. Now, in terms of the studies that show that meditation promotes the social, emotional, psychological learning of people, I think that the evidence is at this point a wash. You've given some studies. I've given 2 studies. First of all, the study from Duke that suggests that we need to do more research, and the research that's currently been promoted is insufficient. And the second study from the institute, the meta study that surveyed 61 studies and determined that the evidence was inconclusive. But ultimately, the majority doesn't matter. Meditation is going to benefit the majority of people. But when you have credible studies, and you said that they're unlikely to be achieved in short 30-minute, twice-a-week sessions, well, many of these studies were short-term. Studies that are giving people delusions, hallucinations, psychosis, depersonalization, and 7% reporting profoundly adverse effects, including panic, depression, pain, and anxiety. These aren't the long-term benefits we're looking for. Again, when we're sending our kids to institutions, we want them to come out for the better. And if we're teaching them some kind of program that hasn't been empirically reviewed enough, it hasn't been tested enough, and has been demonstrated to cause psychological trauma in a minority of people, we simply can't risk that. We don't want 7 out of every 100 kids emerging from the school system experiencing depersonalization and psychosis. Kids don't get that from eating their vegetables, but kids do get that from meditation. And that's what we need to prohibit its instruction in schools, pending further investigation.
First, I'd like to propose a plan into how we can inculcate meditation so as though to not overburden the kids, and then I'll refute your points. So it is important that schools introduce this process slowly, such as 2 times a week for half an hour, so as to not overburden the kids because they're going to experience something new, or cut down on academic time. By first generating awareness through workshops and talks, the process of starting meditation can be organic. A good way to get kids excited about meditating can be to give examples of role models and successful people who practice it. Known figures such as Oprah Winfrey, Hugh Jackman, Richard Branson, Paul McCartney, Angelina Jolie, Emma Stone are a handful that practice it. This can also make meditation seem cool and approachable. Companies such as Google, Goldman Sachs, and Bank of America also use meditation to improve focus, emotional regulation, and other benefits. One of the major benefits of meditation being taught in schools is also the effect of reduced attachment to gadgets and the internet, which could help reduce the problem of addiction to video games, social media, and the need for validation through social media. Other benefits include wider perspective into things that comes with the ability to focus on short-term, long-term goals by spending time thinking about themselves and accepting more people from different backgrounds. A 2015 Central Michigan University study showed that participants practice in meditation through controlled audio or mindfulness. And in the study, mindfulness meditation caused an increase in an experience of calm and bliss and a decrease in implicit race and age bias. According to the study, the result was not because the mindful group were able to see the automatic bias and override it, but rather that the automatic bias simply didn't appear as much as it did for the control group. This shows the power of meditation and that it can remove most problems from their root cause, thereby potentially reducing even long-term adult mental health issues. Now, as far as the legality goes, I cited studies from Harvard and constitutional institutions in the US, such as the US National Library of Science, which have conducted studies, and they cite that meditation is useful for kids and meditation should be taught in schools. I am pretty unsure about what you're saying in terms of the Supreme Court, because there are schools, like I said, in California, which have been practicing them for the past 5 years without any interference, with support from the local community, and their results, as I mentioned, have been great and have been worth looking at. Now, the next thing that you talk about in terms of like delusion and in terms of hallucinations, you have to understand that there are different kinds of meditation, and your concept of meditation as emptying out your mind is one form of meditation. Sitting down in silence and quiet is also meditation, which is something that the California school did incorporate. So I think that if you're just asking kids to sit and introspect and to think about themselves and to think about what they want in life and what are the right things, there's a lot in your mind which needs to be explored. And a lot of times, a lot of issues arise because people aren't able to deal with reality. If we are teaching kids how to deal with reality from such a young age, by introspecting, by being more accepting, by being more emotionally balanced, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
Okay, again, back to clarifying the definition of meditation. Meditation is introspection. It's not cultivating an acceptance within oneself. As you define it, meditation can be focusing the mind for a spiritual purpose, and the hallmark of meditation is this notion of emptying the mind. If we refer back to the 3 programs I cited, Peace in Schools, Insight LA, and Mind Up, the hallmark of meditation in these programs is emptying your mind. I talked about the founder of mindfulness meditation and how he's derived this from explicitly Buddhist constructs. Meditation and religion are intrinsically inseparable. And that's what links to the first disadvantage, showing that because of the Supreme Court precedent that I've already cited, the 2 cases that you haven't contested, that meditation should be forbidden under the Establishment Clause. The case is currently on the docket to be heard by the Supreme Court at this moment. They haven't taken the case yet, but if they do, it's very likely that they'll overturn meditation in the public schools because of its close association with religion. So the first disadvantage and its 2 implications still stand. That people who are uncomfortable with meditation and its ideology shouldn't have to pay their hard-earned tax dollars to go support ideologies in the public sector that they disagree with. And secondly, as parents, if they're concerned that their kids are going to be exposed to ideologies with which their family disagrees, they shouldn't be legally compelled to send their kids to those schools. So the first disadvantage is still viable in today's debate. The second disadvantage, I want to highlight 3 points. The first point is that the studies are awash. You've provided a lot of studies for the benefits of meditation for the majority. Again, I'd like to cite my meta study that surveyed 61 studies and concluded that the results of the benefits of meditation are inconclusive. Also, the Duke study from 2011 that said that we need to do sufficient more examination and investigation, peer-reviewed research before we can even come to a conclusion that meditation is a good thing. The second point under this is the majority doesn't matter. The majority doesn't matter. We can say all we want about meditation assisting the majority of people, but what I'm talking about here is the minority. That there's the minority of people, at least 7%, that experienced long-term detrimental side effects from meditation like depersonalization, psychosis, delusions, hallucination, feelings of anxiety, panic, depression. And the fact of the matter is, we can't expose our kids to this kind of psychological trauma. Your plan introduces meditation slowly. However, many of these studies conducted are short-term meditation. So the negative side effects still apply to your plan. The fact of the matter is, we send our posterity to school so they can go up better, be better people and benefit society and enrich their lives with their education. We shouldn't be implementing programs that have the potential to scar them for life psychologically.
The definition from Religious Dispatches, which says that meditation is not religion, not spirituality. It's a technology of upgrading the mind that can enrich one's life, including one's spiritual life. It does, like I said, it does not need to be intrinsically religious or spiritual. We're used to the idea of being of physical fitness, so now is the time to delve into mental fitness. As far as your point about me not addressing the Supreme Court case, I think I addressed it by showing that legally schools have been practicing meditation. So I guess that needs a little bit more validation. Also, I think overall, after highlighting the benefits of meditation, you should vote pro because of the scientific and individual evidence that supports the practice of meditation. If you're saying that parents shouldn't be compelled to legally send children to schools and practice something religious, it's because this is not religious. This is like having kids in a room and giving them quiet time, giving them time to introspect. And when there are proven benefits, when there are medically, scientifically proven benefits of long-term qualities of creativity, of emotional balance, of mental agility, these are qualities that we, like you said, to inculcate a better society, these are qualities that schools need. So when we have an ancient practice, it's a science, and when we have a science, fair to not pass it on to our children who are facing academic pressure, peer pressure, because currently whatever the schools are doing right now, we are seeing higher levels of peer pressure and academic pressure rising in schools. So clearly schools do need to change their approach to mental health, and schools need to incorporate this from a very, very young age. Children can also influence their families into starting this practice, thereby creating a chain reaction of positivity and healthy mind and body. And they are the future of our world, and they need to be more equipped and to make better decisions. And I just don't think that the cons of meditation, such as the legality, if there is any con in terms of legality, over trumps the pros of meditation and legality. In fact, a lot of countries in the world, all around the world, support meditation. Even the World Health Organization supports meditation, and that it should be taught in schools. Finally, I'd like to end with a quote from Pema Chandan, who is actually an American meditator. And she says that meditation is the process of lightening up, of trusting the basic goodness of what we have and who we are, and of realizing that any wisdom that exists in what we already have. We can lead our lives so as to become more awake to who we are and what we are doing, rather than trying to improve or change or get rid of who we are or what we're doing. The key is to wake up, to become more alert, more inquisitive, and curious about themselves. I don't think parents will have a problem if they're seeing their children rise in academic grades, rise in emotional balance, rise in mental agility, be more accepting of people around themselves. And I think that's a win-win situation for both educational institutions and parents. As far as their taxpaying money goes, like I said, because by definition of meditation being a science and being a technology and being something that spiritually enlightens you, I don't think there's anything to contest in that.
Okay, well, first of all, I wanted to dispel any misunderstanding. I want to make sure that everyone knows that I'm not opposed to meditation. If any adult or any child wants to go meditate in their own time, I'm not opposed to that. The resolution I'm opposing today is that meditation should be taught in schools. And it's my contention that because of legality issues and because schools shouldn't be mandating something that has the potential to jeopardize their kids' psychological security, that we need to oppose the resolution today. I'm going to be responding to both of your overarching points with my two disadvantages. Your first point was that legally schools have been practicing meditation for quite some time. Well, like the first point here is that this is a policy resolution, is indicated by the word should, which means it should be affecting some kind of change. If meditation has been being legally taught in schools for a long time, then there's no change to make. So the second argument against this is that the case right now determining the legality of medication is on the docket for the Supreme Court. But even if that wasn't the case, I've outlined a cohesive legal argument up until this point, citing multiple meditation programs that are current in the current system right now, the founder of meditation, how meditation is inextricably linked to Buddhism, and then showed that according to several Supreme Court cases, that this would be forbidden by the current US Establishment Clause, then drew out the implications to taxpayers and parents. Whether or not the schools have been practicing meditation up until this point, I've presented this legal argument, which the Supreme Court is going to hear very, very soon. Legality is an issue here. Now, in terms of your medically scientific proven benefits, first of all, the evidence awash. You haven't responded to my 61 study meta study that says the results of meditation studies are inconclusive. You haven't responded to my Duke study, which says we need to conduct significantly more empirical research before we can even reach a conclusion on these issues. The second thing is all your benefits pertain to the majority, but we are neglecting the minority if we affirm your position. I've stated this over and over, but studies find that while meditation surely benefits the majority of people, it causes undue harm to a small minority of people, at least 7% reporting profoundly adverse effects like panic, depression, pain, anxiety. Another study showing depersonalization. Depersonalization is where you separate from your body and you feel like you're watching your body like you're watching a movie. The fact of the matter is, if we teach meditation in schools, yeah, 93% of the kids are going to become better citizens. But 7% of the kids are likely going to experience some kind of psychological trauma. We cannot sacrifice the 7% on the altar of the other 93. Sure, meditation can be a great thing for a lot of people, and I'm not going to oppose anyone if they decide to go meditate. But we can't promote it in our schools. Why? Because it's an establishment of religion, and it potentially exposes our children to psychological trauma.
The schools have the ability and authority to engage kids in activities, and it is a more viable option, I would say, than doing it on their own time, which ideally would be ideal. Now, in terms of the 7% that you're talking about, you're not understanding the different types of meditation. I think you should really go back and look at what type of transcendental experience they had and what meditation was taught to them in a controlled environment. As far as the legality ensues, like you said, that the Supreme Court is looking, even if the Supreme Court is looking for a verdict on it, I have given enough benefits to outtriumph the cons of having meditation because it is not intrinsically religious.
When you're talking a cost-benefit analysis, benefits to outweigh the cons, we're dealing with human beings in this debate. And in that sense, we cannot neglect the adverse effects that meditation promotes for 7% of human beings. I know there are various types of meditation, but again, recall the fact that I presented 7 studies, fairly comprehensive studies, that have surveyed the effects of meditation for a wide variety of people in different forms of meditation. And again, they found that at least 7% experience profoundly adverse effects. Like I've stated, meditation's a great thing. We can't teach it in schools. Schools are where we send our children, and teaching meditation in schools potentially exposes our children to psychological trauma. It's something that we cannot do in a clear conscience.